Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.
Good afternoon and welcome to Working for You. I am Roy Williams. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's program. We appreciate your presence very much wherever you are in the world. Today we are going to be discussing a very important topic, and that is how we basically treat older persons in our society. October is designated by the Ministry of Social Development as the month when we celebrate older persons. And there is a list of activities for the month of October that will be discussed, and other issues, of course, that are pertinent to the whole developmental stage of older persons in our society. Today I have with me persons from the Ministry of Social Development to discuss the importance of our care, our treatment, our inclusion of older persons in our society. I have 4 guests and I will ask them to introduce themselves and to say something about their work. Starting, of course.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrea Keynes. I am the Home Care Officer for District 1. My job is to assist the elderly in the community in areas seems possible.
Good day, everybody. I am Janet Lewis, the Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Community Development, Gender Affairs and Social Services.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Ann Wigley, and at the moment I'm the Acting Director of Social and Community Development.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laverne Richard. I'm Senior Social Assistance Officer in the Department of Social Services.
I want to thank all 4 of you for appearing on today's program. Thank you very much, and I look forward, of course, to a very lively discussion. But before we start the discussion, the United Nations, of course, recognizes that aging, and of course the aging process, is one that should be given importance in terms of human development. And they have set aside a day, which is International Day of Older Persons, on the 1st day of October. But on the 14th of December 1990, the United Nations General Assembly designated the 1st of October to be the International Day of Older Persons. This was preceded by initiatives such as the Vienna International Plan of Action on Aging, which was adopted by the 1982 World Assembly on Aging and endorsed later that year by the United Nations General Assembly. In 1991, the General Assembly adopted the United Nations Principles for Older Persons. In 2002, the Second World Assembly on Aging adopted the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging to respond to the opportunities and challenges of population aging in the 21st century and to promote the development of a society for all ages. Almost 700 million people are now over the age of 60. By 2050, 2 billion people, over 20% of the world's population, will be 60 or older. The increase in the number of older people will be the greatest and the most rapid in the developing world, with Asia as the region with the largest number of older persons, and Africa facing the largest proportional growth. With this in mind, enhanced attention to the particular needs and challenges faced by many older persons is clearly required. Just as important, however, is the essential contribution the majority of older men and women can continue to make to the functioning of society if adequate guarantees are in place. Human rights lie at the core of all efforts in this regard. Living up to the Secretary General's guiding principle of leaving no one behind necessitates the understanding that demography matters for sustainable development, and the population dynamics will shape the key developmental challenges that the world is confronting in the 21st century. If our ambition is to build the future we want, we must address the population over 60, which is expected to reach 1.4 billion by 2030, which is the target that was set by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The theme of the 2018 commemoration is celebrating older human rights champions. So that is the theme for this year. Now, PS. Once ago, we used to hear the term, it was the month of the elderly. And now there has been a shift in the terminology. We no longer say the month of the elderly, we now say the month of older persons. What has brought about this shift?
In language, certain words have certain connotations. And what we realize that when persons hear the word elderly, the image that comes to mind is a person who probably is in a rocking chair, can't really do much, isn't mobile, someone that you don't think has much to contribute. And this is not a true reflection of our older citizens. Mm-hmm. Our older citizens are persons with experience, great knowledge, and their assets to our society. We do not want persons, when they look at these older persons, to think of them as individuals who need to be cast aside or placed in some back room in the home. They still have a lot to contribute to our society and our communities. So the term was changed not only here in St. Kitts and Nevis, but globally to older persons. Mm-hmm. So there are still persons who are a very active part of our communities, persons with something to contribute, but they're just older.
Yes. Of course, language, can become a barrier in terms of how we communicate. And language can basically put people into a box. Mm-hmm. And language, of course, can be used to stereotype and to discriminate against people. So the change, the name change, as you clearly explained, is quite understandable in terms of our attitudes. Language can change attitudes and so on. Now, the month of October is designated in the Federation as the month of older persons. In some places, it's a one-day celebration, which really emanates from International Day of Older Persons on the 1st of October. But here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have a month-long celebration. At one time, it used to be a week, but now it has been expanded to 1 month. Now, what are some of the activities for that month, or for this month rather? And could you tell me, what do you hope to achieve? What are some of the goals and the objectives, the outcomes that you hope will be achieved by having this month of activities? Ms. Wigley.
As you rightly said, in St. Kitts and Nevis, we went way back, as in 2002, to then Prime Minister, to tell him that we in St. Kitts need more than a day. We want more. And he asked why, and we had to give the reason, and he accepted it. So from since 2002, we've been doing a whole month. The seniors were asking because they themselves were just shut in and want to get out. And this was a way to get them out in society from leaving them in the home, in rocking chair. And this also keep them younger, healthier, and interact with persons that they would not see again until next year, October. So this was a way to get them involved. And also, we would like to go back there. I will speak about that later, where we used to have the children from the primary schools interact with them and adopt them as their grandchildren. And this really helped to bridge the gap between the little ones and the older ones, because all of us, as soon as we were born, we say, how old are you? So all of us older, but some are older, as the PS rightly said, the older. And we will then ask them, along with the home care officers, what they would like to do. And they themselves would say what they would like, and we will do that once the money become available. So we've been having a number of activities, and usually we start with prayer. So we usually go to church and go to various church within St. Kitts.
Yes.
So we don't choose just one, so at least everybody are happy. This year we celebrated at the Moravian Church in Keon, and it was a grand occasion where all the Moravians met on that Sunday. And it was really a blessing, and up to now the seniors are saying they enjoyed that service. It was from 9:30 until after 2, but they enjoyed it. Then our next function would be a trip to Nevis on Friday. But this is just for the strong amongst the strong. So all those who cannot walk and unable, we are leaving them in St. Kitts. And those who are strong, because it's a match, and the boat can only hold 74 persons. So we are just taking the strong ones across to partner with Nevis, because they usually come down and partner with us. So this year we are going up and partner with them in their match on Friday. And our next event that we're having Spa Day. And this is every Thursday. The AVEC group, they did it last year, and so we are going to pedicure, manicure, all the cures you can think about. The elderly will be treated at the AVEC on every Thursday.
So what are the dates for that? It would be good if you outline the dates for that.
The dates I can't. Every Thursday,
So
starting
the
as this week.
So that's the 4th.
The 4th,
and
then
then
the
the
other
11th.
week. Yeah.
And then the 18th.
Yeah.
And then the 25th.
Yes.
So it's a weekly
Yes,
thing.
a weekly thing, starting at 10 in the morning. Our bus will go around and pick up those persons to take them there. Then we are going to have a movie night. We had one already in August, but we asked the movie people, because little hiccup, and we are going to repeat. So we will let them know which day next week we will have a movie night. Then from the movie night, we are honoring, which day we don't know yet, because this would be the Ministers' Day, that we go out in each community and honor our seniors. We have changed, Lesroy, from usually it was the oldest person, and we realized that it was the same person being honored every year. Because, for example, Brother Bailey in Sadler's, who is 100 and some, he will be always the one to honor because he's the oldest. So we shift a bit and say that every year we change and give someone a turn once you're over 70. But the centenarians still receive their honor because you cannot beat them. They're still the oldest.
Yes.
So they will get their honor still, and when we have someone else within. So we will do that based on waiting on the ministers when they can go out, because we will like them to be there with us. So that date is not set, but the persons will be honored. Then we move on to this year. Mr. Tatum has decided to come on and do a real cultural evening for us. And this would be at St. Peter's. So we will be pampered by different things. And I believe there would be involved love, because this is old-time thing that they can appreciate. And that would be the 28th of October. And then we go back now to the 25th of October, where we will have a luncheon.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be at the Royal St. Kitts. And they will come out dressed down in their dandan and best, and we'll have some entertainment, and they would be entertained at the luncheon at the Royal St. Kitts. That is the end of this month. But just to go back, when we realized that so many things in October, and everybody has adopted October as their month, and it was putting us in the back seat, we decide to move it. So during the year, we have various activities. So we had, in February, we had a nice Sunday afternoon at the Heritage Society, and it was big this year, 100 and something persons in February. And then we had our fun day at Connery playing field, where they run and do exciting, get the medals. And then we had the movie, and no. So we stagger it out that they're not too tired in 1 month. And they love it. And I'm telling you, we have to have the movie every year, no matter what, because they love to know, they tell their grandchildren, I'm going movies, They love to go to the movie. So that is a treat for them.
You know, this, what you're doing is so important in terms of how we can make these older persons feel appreciated and loved, and really cater to their psychosocial needs, which is so important. Sometimes when you are young, you think that you are invincible. You think that you are immortal. You never think of death. You never think sometimes of even getting ill. And you think that you'll never grow old. And there is a connection between being young and being older. Because the type of lives that we live when we are young, the type of things that we get involved in, the type of attitudes that we form, the type of worldview that we have as younger people, it determines what quality of life we would have when we are older persons. If our lives were meaningful when we were young, then when we get older, we will find that meaning, even in our old age and so on. Now, you mentioned something, Miss Wigley, about the grandchildren and the children, and it really speaks to that generational relations, intergeneration. The younger generation, the older generation, and the relationship that they can have among themselves. Now, what is the role of the family? Because you mentioned children, grandchildren. The role of the family really in catering to the psychosocial needs of older persons. And I might even say the biopsychosocial needs of older persons. What role does the family play?
That they're supposed to play.
Supposed to.
This is one of our biggest challenge, and I'm going to also ask the officer to come in here. We are pleading there to the family. We have lost it. I'm serious. In St. Kitts, we have lost it. Families are no more looking after their families.
I don't totally think we have lost it. There are some
When
families
I said the one man sheep spoil the whole flock. But I don't want to go there. But most of our people that we are dealing with, the problem is that they do not. I'm serious. They leave them there on weekends. We go, and when we go back on Monday, the same clothes, the same everything. So that's why I say we have lost it. Not
so
the
there's a
whole
lack.
thing. There's a lack. There are some persons out there who I can tell you, wow, they look after, not even their own, somebody else, and they look after. But we shift. We need more people to look after their people. Don't think that it's government alone to do that. And I'm going to now, after finish, switch to the PS to say what we're doing to do.
Certainly.
Yeah, that about the elderly and looking after them and the law. And sometime I'm going to ask you again, Mr. Letteroy, that we come back next month in October and bring somebody from the health, the nursing sector, to come on to speak about that area that is really hurting. The family role first is to care for your family. And then we assist. We are assist. We are not the family. So you must care not just when they die, but before they die. And then we will do our best. But we will like you to do your best as family. Yes, some children are outside, some children are not here, but we have, especially in St. Kitts, we are so close that we are united in family. Nobody in St. Kitts is going to tell me that they don't have any family. Something
Yes.
is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Something is wrong because we are so close, and we must please start looking out for our family. Children, look after that thy days may be long on this earth. Care for your mom, your dad. Yes, we have problems with the dads, but we have problems with the moms too. To care for your children, that later the children would now care for you. Don't abandon it. And the family role is very important. It is not our role. We are just here to help. And I'm going to ask.
Well, you can provide some of what the family provides, but it is not to upend, of course, the family unit and the role that it plays, because it's a major source of satisfaction, and it is in that unit, that context, that the older folks will have the love and the companionship and so on coming from the children and the grandchildren and the whole extended family and so on. So it's not to replace the role of the family, but in some ways you still provide some of those qualities, attributes and characteristics that of course the older persons need. So and then of course it's not always easy, because we can think about the changes that come with the aging process. For example, there has to be a lot of adjustments, no, which occur with aging. You are no longer physically able as you used to be. You may have mobility issues. Retirement. And what do you do in retirement? When you were younger, did you plan for your retirement? Which is important.
I wasn't thinking about that long
You were
time.
not thinking about it. And as you get older, you start thinking, of course, of your own mortality. And the fear of death sometimes can become very real. And then there are some persons who, of course, they've lost a spouse, a husband or a wife, and then, that brings another dimension, that there's a loss. There is a loss of that companionship that you had with a significant other.
Sometimes parents lose their children young too, and you wouldn't believe it affect them just as a spouse.
Yes.
It affect them. They thought that they would have buried their children instead
Yes.
of that they are burying.
Yes,
because
and
we
older
have- we
persons
have
losing
cases, yeah.
losing grandchildren
Children
and
before,
children and so on, and then it affects them as well.
terribly.
In terms of the whole grieving and all of that. So there's a lot in terms of satisfying really the psychosocial needs and sometimes, the mental health. Now, that leads me to my next question in terms of the home care officers within the Ministry of Social Development and your role in assisting in taking care of older persons, and in terms of how prepared you are for those challenges, because it can wear you out as well.
It does. It really does. Good afternoon again. The role of the home care officer really is to assist, help the families out there with the elderly. Sometimes we go out there and the state of mind we would have left an elderly person the day before, and we don't meet them in that same
older
state of
person.
mind. Yes. We don't meet them in that same state of mind or the same conditions. Like Ms. Wigley said earlier, the conditions, we meet them the Monday morning, that weekend, the Friday, we would have bathed them and put on a purple dress. The weekend, they're still in the same purple dress. Monday morning, we're going to still in the same purple dress. For us, the home care officers, it messes with us mentally, because they are in that home with their children, grandchildren. What they do, they just carry in the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that's it. Bath is not given, clothes is not changed, the sheet messed up. It messes with us, the home care officers, because we are only there to help. What are they doing? They're collecting and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. We assist in bathing, combing hair, make a light lunch, breakfast, cut nails. We might have to take them to the doctors. All of this we have to do. And then when we have to deal with this day after day after day, we have been pleading to the families them out there. And I hope the ones that's supposed to be listening is really listening this afternoon, because they're not pulling their weight. I've been doing this job for 17 years, and it is getting worse and worse daily. The elderly is out there, their conditions is changing rapidly. So the conditions is getting worse. The service that it is needed. We even need more home care officers, but the money to pay them might not be there. So we are pleading this afternoon to the families, please help us. Don't just put down the breakfast and go. Don't say, Mother, the home care officer coming, or Miss Keynes coming, or Miss Paul coming. No, help us. If you can get up this morning, get them in the bath and leave the breakfast, then we can go in and do something else. Wake them up early, or
They do be
give
up
them
early.
the breakfast then. At least we'll go and freshen them up. But at least they had something to eat. When we go there, we have to do and do and do. We are burnt out. When we go home, we're not used to our own families at home. I just ask myself, I wonder who's going to care for me when I get older, if I do reach that stage, if I'm not burned out now and don't reach that stage.
The irony of it is that sometimes we are negligent as family members in caring for our older family members, forgetting that we will get old too, and
One day,
one
might.
day, and
Might.
might if God grants us that,
Right.
and we will need somebody to take care of us as well. But I think that has to be something that comes with a whole
From the inside
conversion, a change of heart and mind in terms of attitudes and the way we think.
out. Even
Because
the way
a
we
lot,
speak to each
yes,
other.
because
yeah.
you might say, well, the family is not doing this, but the family has been conditioned in a certain way by our society and its attitudes and so on in terms of how we treat older people. And so the socialization has to start from a very young age in terms of inculcating in the younger people a love for older people. And sometimes you see it where you have younger persons, there's no respect, there's no tolerance, there's no compassion, nothing at all. And you wonder, where is this coming from? And it was Mahatma Gandhi who said that the true measure of any society is how it treats its weakest and most vulnerable members. That is the true measure of any society. The youngest can be maybe people, children, women, older people, but how it treats people who are minorities and so on is really the true measure of any society. Now, ageism, Miss Lewis, might be one of the problems that is fueling what the home care officer is talking about, which is really the stereotyping and discrimination towards people who are older. What are some of the ways you think that we can counteract ageism in our society?
Miss Wigley alluded to one thing that we can do. In the past, when the ministry celebrated older persons' birthdays, the home care officer and ministry staff would visit the older person and they would take with them primary school children. So it gave the children a chance to interact with the older person. They would sing songs, they would read together, and they would just communicate with each other. So the older person got a sense of belonging, and the younger persons learned to appreciate the older person. And it was a place where experience, wisdom could be shared with the younger persons. There's also the adopt a grandparent program, where there are some children who may not have living grandparents, or their grandparents may be overseas. And if we have a program such as that, those children who don't have a grandparent, they can adopt a older person within their community. They can go and visit that older person, do little chores for that person. They learn a sense of responsibility. They would learn that we are all accountable for each other. And again, it's a chance for them to form a bond or relationship with that older person. There's also an avenue that we're going to be exploring, the Golden Years Club, which Miss Richard would elaborate on shortly. But as part of that program that she would introduce to you would be school children visiting the older persons who are a part of that program. So these young persons would now begin to understand that these older persons, they're an active part of our society. We can do things together. Yes, there would be that generation gap, but there would still be some similarities and things that you can share with each other. For example, you have a older person. I would like to say that older persons can teach the young persons things, but young people can also teach older persons things. We're now in the technology age, cell phones, and older persons have cell phones. We can have a young person who can go in and teach that older person, well, Granny, this is how we WhatsApp, or this is, and teach them how to Skype. You have your relatives overseas. This is how you talk on Messenger via video, so you can talk to your grandchild who lives overseas. So
Some of
it's a
course are very
sharing.
open to learning,
Yes.
but there are
Some of
others
them
who are set in
aren't.
their ways,
Yes,
and
they
especially
are.
with the technology and so
They
on.
are.
You say that they're technophobic and so on. But nonetheless, there are other
We could try.
things you can do
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
you
But
know.
at least it
At least.
opens it up for discussion. So at least you have them interacting. The old, what's going to well, when
My
I
days I
was
didn't have
young,
that.
Yeah.
we did not have that. The young would ask them, how did you talk to so and so? So at least there's that conversation
Yes,
going on.
because I think we need to dispel a lot of the myths
Yeah.
that we have in our society about older persons. Just recently, in my department, I was, editing an article that was sent to me, of course, from one of my information officers. And the picture that was sent, really, to go with the article, were two older persons with a cane and bending over. And I called the information officer and I said, couldn't you find a better picture than that? And basically what was in my mind is that the perception that we have of older people is that they are bent
Yes.
over
And has a cane.
and that they have a cane and so on. And these are some of the myths that we think that older people are sick.
Yes.
We think older people are disabled. We think that, they must be in a nursing home.
Yes. So we
We
try.
think that the senility comes with old age, but you have a lot of young people who are not too right in their heads, the way they behave, and that old people are unhappy. We think that, they shouldn't have sex and they shouldn't have kiss and cuddle and all of that. And when you see it, you say, well, she play young, eh?
Yes, they're sexual beings.
You say,
They have feelings.
she playing young, eh? But at the very same time, they are sexual beings and they have those same feelings
And
for
urges.
sex and urges and so on. So why are you, these are some of the myths that we have, the discrimination and stereotypes that we have. So lovemaking is only for
Young person.
young people. Where did we get that?
But those myths that we have actually hurt the older persons because you restrict their activities. And let's look at something like their sex lives. We are in a society, like it or not, there are some diseases out there and people need to be educated. Now, if you're going to go on the belief that these older persons shouldn't be having sexual intercourse, they shouldn't be in relationships, then you may miss the chance to educate them about how they can protect themselves and what diseases are out there. So you're actually opening them up or making them more vulnerable to diseases. So you're hurting them even more.
Yes.
Unless you are.
And we feel that old people, sometimes you hear the analogies, oh, you're just like an old grandmother, meaning that you're cranky, that you're cantankerous, and all that sort of a thing. And they seem to associate that with old age. And, people, they're not interested in sex. And
But a lady told me the other day, she and the husband, and whatsoever, and people think, and she had to tell him, as you said, this sexting, she want nourishment, not punishment. So you see, they're into it. So she want nourishment. So let the young people know that is not just thing, it is a part of life. It can be different ways. And we don't say, oh, what they, as you said, they're there together, they do what they want to do. But don't think that because they're there, it is not.
Yes.
And the elderly, they always, to be honest, they always want to know that people come around. That the
They
young
look
people,
forward
they
to it.
look forward to it.
and they want to talk.
And they want to talk. So it is not that we are pushing them away, not they're pushing the young people away. It's we who are trying to think, but they always want to be in the mix.
Right, so we have to dispel those myths because those myths are really fueling the sort of stereotypes that we have and attitudes and actually practices prejudicial attitudes, and discriminatory practices.
Yeah, we need to really encourage what we call active aging. Because
Yes.
you're a certain age, it doesn't mean that you can't do certain things.
things.
As
Thank
long
you.
as you are physically able and you want to do something, you should not be
Denied.
restricted or denied.
Right. You
This is
should.
why in our ministry and also in NEBIS, in the sister ministry, the activities that we have are things that young people themselves are also engaged in. The fun day, where you see the older persons running the 100 meters
Yeah.
and doing other activities.
Right.
NEBIS had a queen show last year.
Yes.
So you don't restrict their activity. And these are things that they actually ask us for.
And they have a steel pan in Nevis that we are trying to see if we can real active, the elderly, have the orchestra.
So it's the desires. They
Yeah.
still have those
They still have
longings and
those
so
longings,
on,
yeah.
of course, that they should not be bad from. You know. Now, Miss Richard, you haven't said a thing yet on this program. And so I come, you of course, the Senior Social Assistance Officer. And that speaks a lot in terms of what you do. The sort of social assistance. Of course, you know, older people need their you know, that social fulfillment.
Yes.
They need to socialize, not only with the younger people, but people of their own age, and so on. And that is because when you're getting older, there can be a sense of social isolation.
That's right.
Yeah. Loneliness kicks in.
Very much so.
And so there's a need to have sort of social programs and so on for older people so that they can feel wanted and needed and loved and so on. Tell me more about that from your end.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say I started out as a home care officer, so I have been around the older persons for a while in the ministry, and I have grown to love and appreciate them even more. I have learned to hear their voices of what their needs are and how best we can help them in their situations. And so as I was promoted to a social assistance officer, but several months later, I started in 2001. Being around them, I realized that with all the activities that was going on, I think that there was something more that could have been done, a program that they could really associate themselves with. And so with several discussion and community groups, including the health centers and so forth, we were able to create a recreational programs for older persons. And this program is I call it a logical framework because it is a comprehensive program. It not only includes areas where they can socialize and stuff, but it also includes ways in which they can improve their health and still stay in contact with society. So that program, the Golden Years Club, is a program that was established in 2004. We started out as a pilot because we wasn't sure what the outcome would be. However, we had about 20 elderly persons involved in that. And the pilot was in the...
We had 20 older persons. We have to start using the terminology that we say have changed. I've noticed on this program that we have used the word elderly. So we have to get away from the use of the word elderly. We can't be saying one thing and then be doing another. We had 20 older persons.
I like that.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, things take time. We're going to transition eventually. So 20 older persons, and they were in training for 6 months. the training in areas, I mean, you know, these are persons who would have been out there, who have worked, so they would have skills. Some of them wouldn't have little education, but those who would have skills and, you know things, they would teach each other. But we had persons who would come in, like the doctor and so forth, to give education in health, and the nurses and so forth. We had a computer class. So, like you alluded to earlier, they are open to learning, because 20 of these persons sat in a computer room where they were taught basic computer training, and they were very happy with that. A part of that program was also a gym that was specially designed to keep their physical, activities going, and that is also there. We weren't able to put it in all the communities because it was the pilot, and the monies were there. It was funded by the Canadian government, Caribbean government, the Canadian Caribbean Initiative.
Yes.
And in collaboration with the government of St. Kitts. And so they were in training, and we did that. And after the 6 months training, they had a graduation. Some of them were very excited, said they never received a certificate in their life. So you could imagine how exciting and how grateful these older persons were. And at the end of that, the goal of the project is to really have them to take ownership, and so they did. And they had a president, vice president, and just like a regular group. The club for 2004, so 2 years later, we extended into K-On, and some of the money that remained out of that was able to bring up the K-On community, and so they were up until 2012. They went dormant, and so we are hoping to revive them again and to bring that project under the Ministry of Social Development, because they were operating as an NGO. So we are hoping that to have this recreational program for older persons in all the community that have a community center that will accommodate them, where they will go out daily, and they are the one who decide the days, the time, and so forth. So we include them. We give them a say, so they decide the time and everything, and so we want to bring it under the umbrella of the ministry, so that it can be a program that we can oversee, that will not fall through, because we need it for our older persons. This is where they go out, they interact with each other, they teach each other to do things. I've sat there and I've watched many of them showing each other how to do this and how to do that, and they're very excited about it. So we are hoping to revive the dormant ones and to get the other ones up and going very soon. I hope the PS will give me a push on that. Yes, and so along with that, like Mrs. Wigley mentioned, there's a steel pan orchestra in Nevis. Well, we are also hoping to have a steel pan orchestra for older persons in St. Kitts. So that is also in the making, because it helps, they are very active,
Yes.
And like you said, once we, make the activity available to them, they're going to avail themselves.
Yes.
If they don't have it, they won't. So we just can't say they're not going to do it. We throw it out to them, and we see how they react to it. And, a lot of the times we get positive reactions.
One of the Greek philosophers, of course, said that the goal of life basically is happiness.
Yes.
Actually, to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And
then you make other people happy.
And then you make others happy. And not only that, I think with that, you can live longer.
Yes, absolutely.
And the way that one feels has a lot to do with their health.
Yes.
You know, so
Health
it's
and
it's a
surrounding.
mind body environment kind of connection, because what you have described basically deals with an element when people are getting older, that of social isolation. And older people, of course, do not want to be isolated, because older persons, if they're isolated, what does that lead to?
Loneliness.
It leads to loneliness. It leads to depression.
Yes.
Depression.
Yes.
And so if they have that social network that can provide
To keep them mind.
that support, that help that they need and so on, hey, it's better for everybody.
Yes. It
And this is
enhances.
something to look. Sorry, this is something to look forward to. Whether it's twice a week around this time, these persons gonna come. So mentally, it start to change.
Now, you are a home care officer. Let me ask you a question. How much do you do in terms of, trying to find out in terms about the family, the person's family? Do you engage in discussions with the person about, their past and some of their achievements and all of that sort of a thing? Because I think the talk is important. More than anything else, they like to talk and to share their experiences, and to the humor, jokes and all of that. And there's a lot that one can actually learn by just sitting at the feet of older persons.
So
How
that's
do
why
you do that? And
I'm glad you raised that question, because sometimes the families themselves are too busy. So the information we get it from the older persons
Yes.
themselves, in terms of talking about from their school age come up to when they met their first boyfriend, they had their first baby, they got married, what Senkis was like back then. So we get the information more from the elderly rather than from the family. Even pertaining to the older person's health condition, we get that from the person themselves, not from the family. The family is not there. Sometimes we don't even get a thank you from the family. We more get a God bless you from the older person, sorry. From that older person.
right.
Even when we want to take them out on activities for them one to the elderly, sometimes we don't even see the family to tell. We'll have to leave a note or use the evenings to call them and remind them, don't forget to get mommy dressed for this time tomorrow, or bring them by the bus stop. We're going to pick them up. And me, myself, will have to go and get them ready to go to that activity.
Yes.
So that's why I'm pleading again for the families to come on board again and help us. 'Cause we need the help.
And sometimes, let's face it, as people grow older, and you have the aging process for older persons and so on, those five senses that you have, some quality is lost from them. You might not be hearing as well as you used to hear, or seeing, and all of that sort of a thing. And those things basically can affect communication. And so therefore it requires, I think, on your part, some sort of a patience in terms of listening.
A lot.
Sometimes they tell you the same thing
maybe
over and over.
They tell you the same thing over and over. You may find it repetitious, but you have to understand something of the aging process, and in terms of what is happening at that stage of development. And maybe that is why sometimes people sort of shy away from looking after older people, because they may find it to be
They don't understand.
quite a challenge, and they don't understand the psychosocial stage at which the older person is at. They may say, well, they may say all kinds of things and so on, and you may think, well, really, is it this you that they're getting at? You may become frustrated. You might even get angry and so on, and that might be the reason why some people sort of shy away. So there are some qualities that you, as the home care officer, have to have. The qualities, not everybody is really cut out
No. for this.
for certain things like that, you know. But
That is
nonetheless,
true.
sometimes you have to force yourself
Yeah.
because it is your duty. But there are certain qualities that are needed. What are some of those qualities, Miss Wigley, to look after older persons?
Tolerance, patience. You must have a sense of love. I'm serious, deep love. And if you can't love, I don't think you give love. It is very, very difficult. Sometimes the family would say to me, "Mommy's playing smart," or "Daddy's playing smart." I don't. They have to understand. It isn't this smartness. It is, we go through, as you say, a phase. And you have to learn and understand that their mind, wave.
Yes.
And the other thing I would like to say to us out there is that something, I don't understand it myself, but I find it over the years that I'm doing this, that the closest person to that person, they don't treat them well. Like, you are my father, I'm your daughter. And you kind of, you don't say to me, you bash, you thing like that. And lover on the outsider will come in and speak with you, and so, and you talk to them, and then loved one is going to say, "Well, look at how, see how she's talking to you, and I'm her daughter, his daughter," and you ain't saying nothing, because I will be annoyed because I'm here, and then love one like an outsider, and you dealing with love one, but something I myself, I cannot explain why, but I'm pleading to them out there, don't take it bad. It happens not just to you. This is something that I've seen over the 20-something years, that the persons who are close to them, they're far away, and somebody just come in and say, "Hello, darling. Hi, darling. How are you?" And so don't take it bad. We just have to have patience, tolerance, and love.
Because what we're dealing with basically is a lifetime
Yes.
of what you would have developed, your habits, your whole worldview, and so on. And at that stage, change becomes more difficult because you're already sort of set in your ways and so on. But do you discuss, for example, with them their achievements and some of the things that they regret? Because people have regrets. And there are some people who, maybe that is where you have the crankiness and the cantankerous thing come in, because when you look back on your life, you feel a sense of regret, and that might lead to despair and so on, which is Erik Erikson's 8th stage in terms of the psychosocial stages of development, which is ego integrity versus despair. It's either that you there's an acceptance of a meaningful life, or you have feelings of anger and bitterness and depression and inadequacy, failure and fear of death. Maybe you did not look after your children
The right way, so no.
the right way,
Or even
and then you have
Continue.
or even accepting them, your complaint that you're dealing with at the moment. Because there's this particular lady, you'll hear say, "When I came from Munchette, I did not think money on diabetes, sugar. What is it really? I still ain't know what it is. I want to eat and drink and live and be happy. I want a malt now and again, a piece of cake." But then
Yes.
she can only have a small portion of that, and she can't have it every day, and she will get upset. And she said she don't know what made her smart. She didn't know anything about that.
right. And then there are other issues, of course, where, of course, the scripture said that when you were young and so on, you can go where you want and where you please. But when you reach a certain age, somebody will tie a belt around your waist and lead you. And then there are all these questions about independence. Loss of my independence.
Yeah.
That's
That
a
is
big
big,
thing,
big thing.
Nobody
Yeah.
wants to lose their
Big
independence.
thing for this senior, yeah.
Because it's really a matter of ego and all of that.
And the other thing, Leroy, is that we have to be careful. We say that they're playing smart because they remember when they used to go to school and they used to go down the alley and talk with John and so on. But now what you're telling them, like you have to repeat it, they don't remember. So you say, but I just tell you that. And then you could tell me some, because it is the brain that we don't know. Alzheimer's kick in. It remembers because it's stored in the brain. So they remember when they used to go long time, they used to talk with John and Paul. You just speak to them yesterday and they're asking you, what did you say?
Yes.
So we have to remember
Memory.
that is the memory, and don't think that playing smart. It is not about playing smart.
You
It's
lose
just
your
that you
memory.
lose
You
your
lose.
memory. And we have
And
young people
sometimes
now.
it's, you have a short-term memory, but you can't remember things from way back.
That's
and
right.
sometimes you forget things that happened
You know,
yesterday.
and
I remember
long
something that
time.
happened 50 years ago.
Yes, so it is.
You know, so-
it is not that they're playing smart. We have to just go with the tide and the
And that is why we need to have support for caregivers, because sometimes it can be quite a challenge for persons who are looking after their older relatives, especially those who are suffering from Alzheimer's, dementia, etc. So there needs to be a support system for the caregivers, whether it is other family members or whether it's the church community or neighbors. Sometimes caregivers themselves just need a little respite, a little day off when somebody else can come in and take over some of the responsibilities for the day.
Well, I think we have to go to the phone lines. There's still some things I want to ask you, but we'll go to the phone lines. The numbers to call, 465-2555. That's the local number. And the overseas number is 1718-577-2916. That is 1718-577-2916. We welcome your calls. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Lesroy.
Yes,
This is
good
James Bonny
afternoon.
Pemberton, a member from staff. Well, Mrs. Wrigley-Coon said nothing better than how she just said. Is people who close to the elderly, or to the older person, just drive them away. I could tell that. Because I'm in the program from day one. Me and Miss Wrigley started out the program from day one until now, so I know what's going on. And as the peers say, that the caregiver needs some support. And that's what we don't really give sometimes. We really need the support. That's all I'm saying. That's my input.
Okay, thank you very much for your input. P.S. At the level of policy, what is the Ministry of Social Development doing?
Hello.
Yes, working for you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Miss Wrigley. Carol here.
Good afternoon.
Miss Wrigley, I'm still waiting for my program for the month for the elderly.
Oh Lord,
Year after year, I'm being left out. St. Johnson, we have St. John Methodist Church have a senior citizen group.
yes.
And we have, well, we have one or two members who go to your thing, but it's the thing about the age. What age does one qualify to be in this thing? Because I went once or twice, I say, in for you. What age? They make you so uncomfortable. And they need a mixture of a little younger thing, but when you go to the older ones, they make you feel so uncomfortable.
I understand quite clearly. I don't know where that come from, because my thing is the seniors. And to be fair, up to just yesterday, Andrea Keynes said that the program, you all did not get a program, and you haven't seen me for a while because I was so busy.
I know you're busy, but
I will get a program. I will get a program.
Because
to you all.
can I say something? On the 25th, when you're having a lunch, that's the same Thursday, I give my shut-in members and those who come to my group a lunch. I was wondering, what do you have on the 18th? Because I know some of my members want to go to your luncheon.
Nothing is on the 18th.
It's paddy.
Oh, unless you want to go and have a pedicure, manicure, and all the cures.
Well,
Change the date.
a member of a church.
Oh, you want to change the date for your lunch?
Well, I was thinking about that because, and then I had some members of my thing who don't come out. So I wonder what will be done to get them the lunch? 'Cause if I cancel the lunch, only those who go over there will get lunch, and we are in the minority. Who goes to the meeting in the minority.
Okay.
But I would like them, because I know for sure a member from it going. She got to movies and so.
Okay, darling. What I can do off the air, I will get you, and then we can go through it, because you are there. We're supposed to work together. So
Yeah,
if
sometimes we need somebody to come in and talk and all, and for the elderly, because we only meet once per month.
Okay, so you can call me after, and we can go through it and discuss and arrange, because we are here to work together. Okay?
Yeah, I would ask. So, what age do you consider one elderly?
Some places say 65.
Yeah, we say that, but
to-
when we go, I went to St. Paul's a time there, and it's good thing I was there. I was able to put some life into it. And they argue, they don't see what Carol has to come for, because it ain't for them. So I just say, okay.
Of
No,
course,
but
you see that's another
That's another thing,
area
but
of
it is.
The afternoon when they had the one
exclusion,
up
you see?
thing across by the lodge.
Yeah.
It was my intention going, but as a Carol young go there for them to wash out the motor and use the stay home, really.
Oh boy, 62 in St. Kitts we have social security. So from 62,
they have to understand, and the work, those who come around, they don't. I'm on my veranda. Well, now my eyesight is fading, so I don't really move around much.
Yeah, okay.
And they just say, "Hey, Carol," They say, Carol, you want your prescription or nothing at all, and the feedback, we have to talk one-on-one.
Okay, we have to.
Okay, Carol.
One-on-one.
Okay, dear.
You will speak one-on-one with Miss
duties in this
Wigley.
area.
Okay.
But let me know the program. But with the manicure, we have a member works at AVEC, and she didn't give it out. It was given out last year, so we are in tune with that.
Okay, Carol.
Okay.
But I need to get some people go to lunch. When they ride down the OTS or at the break, then give me a thing for the dance and so. And I think if we reach a stage now, and I should be begging. I should be on the list.
Okay.
That shouldn't be, but we will talk, Carol. I'll come
one-on-one. So
okay.
I'm almost home now.
Okay.
Okay, have a nice day.
Right.
Okay. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Les Roy, Miss Wigley and company.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
As usual, good show.
Thank
Now,
you.
Miss Wigley, the seniors, I know you all have ideas. You have a lot of good ideas because you could see beyond the horizon. Now, I would like you all to have at least a queen show competition for the seniors someday. And now my thing is this. Carol, don't mind that. Don't mind what I say. The student companion say, one is as young as he feels, and also one is as old as he feels. Now, everybody in this world here, once you are alive, you have your heart, where the Bible say. The Bible say, where a man treasure is, there lies his heart.
Yes.
And the seniors who retire from work, and they push them aside, the seniors know where they work from, where they have it, and they have their heart on it too. And those who ain't work for it, they got a bigger heart on it. So when they push the senior in a corner, and they say, go lie down, lap your tail, then they go on to draw the senior money. And the senior ain't getting not even a popsicle out of that. So I would like the welfare department to look into these things, look to see who's drawing culture money and what he's doing with it. Because if they put culture in the infirmary, culture is supposed to be enjoying the money. When you go down there, you're supposed to see me in rags and tattoos. And my money down there, and I'm draw it every month. So please get someone to look into that. Thank you. Other people want to call in, so I gone out the way.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, P.S. We were talking about policy.
You have someone.
Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon, sir.
And good afternoon to Miss Ann Wigley and her team.
Good afternoon.
Always doing a wonderful job with the elderly, and that is so good. Now, my little concern with the elderly, a lot of people they do not look at the elderly. When the elderly get sick down, they might get old down on their side. They just put them one side and they turn their back from them. And that is so bad. And these are people who got a house. These are people who got a house. And they take them and put them somewhere else with somebody else to live. And then when you look now, that person maybe treat them as good as how they were supposed to treat them. So what I see, I believe some of these people, some of these children, they're gonna like they ain't gonna get old. Scanning the elderly, scanning the mother, scanning their grandmother or whatsoever. And I see it happen a lot of times. And that is so bad. That when you don't work so hard for your children and your grandchildren them, and you're destroyed, you became scornful. I see it all the time. And you all continue to do a wonderful job, man. And listen, you are just assisting. You all ain't supposed to go in a home and help look for the elderly when they got the parents, the children and the grandchildren, and they put it on work hard for. You know, wonderful program as usual. God bless.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can get to what the government is doing in terms of the aging policy, a policy for older persons, because if this is such an important part of our own development, it should be at the policy level. And this year's theme, which highlights human rights and so on, and our Constitution, of course, Chapter 2 of our Constitution speaks about the protection of our fundamental freedoms and rights and so on. And older people have rights.
All of us.
And how can we make sure that these human rights are protected for older persons in our society, among other things?
Okay. You reference the Constitution, and we like to say, the human rights are already covered in the Constitution. But sometimes we need to have specific policies or legislation because there are certain groups in society who need that little extra, and older persons are a part of that. So several years ago, there would have been an assessment of our aging population. We looked at what issues older persons are facing in St. Kitts and Nevis. This was done through a lot of consultations and meetings with the older persons themselves, NGOs, CBOs, other ministries, stakeholders in general across the board. And a draft policy was put together. Now, for the draft policy that we want to present, we intended for this to be one that promoted things like healthy aging, active aging, intergenerational solidarity, accessibility, which is a large, huge thing that would impede older persons enjoying their older years. And
no, that would include, if you can break that down a bit, would that include, for example, because sometimes we have societies that are not building, our building codes and so on are not one that, in terms of accessibility, you said, people can't go up all these flight of stairs. Do we have elevators? Do we have ramps? You know, our bathrooms outfitted with those things, rails and all of that. And it tells you something about the society in which we are. And more people are understanding and building and structuring the infrastructure in society to really show that they care for older people and that they are serious.
But not only older persons, let's worry. The
disabled, persons with disabilities,
yes.
And so on.
And then, although you may be young and strong,
No.
we can walk out of ZIZ studio,
And something happened.
slip,
And that's it.
our foot is in a cast, and we realize, but I can't get around. I can't go to the third floor of this building. There's no elevator. So when we put these things in place, thinking that they're for older persons or persons with disability, someday they would also benefit you, me, all of us.
So that I suppose, is encapsulated in what
the policy.
Mahatma Gandhi said. In terms of the true measure of any society is how it cares for its weakest and most vulnerable.
Right, and that is also why in looking at the aging policy, we didn't just want to put a policy in place that looked at what we should do when persons are already 62 and over. Wanted to do a policy that spanned the whole lifespan. So you put things in place for persons from when they are young that would end up making the society a more inclusive and better one for when they become older persons. So for example, we know that older persons right now would be suffering from various chronic diseases, diabetes, hypertension. Even the younger persons have these chronic diseases. So the policy promotes education across the entire lifespan. It supports things that would promote a healthier lifestyle while you are younger, so that when you get to that older age, you may not, hopefully, God willing, have to contend with hypertension and diabetes. But if you do, then there should also be things in place according to the policy that would help you to have access to your medication and to adequate care. Similarly, we found that a lot of older persons have to deal with poverty. As we mentioned earlier.
Because declining income in terms of a steady income coming in and so on.
So one of the things that the policy, for example, would be pushing is that persons have a way that they can begin planning for their retirement. So there should be certain schemes in place. You have to be educated, and there has to be some system or scheme in place that would help you to plan for your older years.
Yes.
So that you can still have a good quality of life regardless of what age you're at. Again, with accessibility, we look at the housing sector. We build our homes, but we may not have wide doorways or wide passageways. When we get older, we may need the help of a walker, a wheelchair. Now, if we don't have these wider doorways and passageways, how are we going to get to the restroom? How are we going to get to our bed in our bedrooms? So the policy looks at putting all of these things in place, working with all age groups, so that by the time you get to an older age, you can still enjoy a good quality of life. So it's about making our society an inclusive one for all ages.
Yes, so the policy is an all-inclusive.
Whether you are 99.
Yeah, and it's going to, of course, be built on international best practices and so on.
Evidence-based
evidence and within the region.
And human rights.
And human rights.
Be human rights based.
And so on. Because, of course, you have violence and abuse towards older people.
We do.
Mind you, there are some people, some younger people, all they think about is if they get into the will. It's a fact.
Yes.
If they get into the will, you know, and so they only come around when the person is actually going to die and so on, because they want to know if their name is in the will.
You say it
And
nice.
that is abuse.
And if their name is in the will or not, they might not even come to the funeral.
That is
But
abuse.
Miss
to
Wrigley
let them
say
know.
too nice. They're asking the question, when you're dead, what for me? That's the question they're asking.
Right, which is really a
Which
little
is
bit
really-
disrespectful,
yeah, it is
because
right,
I mean, it's like the prodigal son who he said to his father, "I want my inheritance now," and really that is not something you ask somebody who is, you know.
So it is abuse. Not just that. This is not just that. Yes, but that is
Financial.
abuse. And I
Mental
also
abuse, yeah.
said to my seniors, I don't care who vex. When you're going to the bank and thing, make sure that you put that word and because just a couple of weeks ago we had one. The gentleman is still sick because the gentleman had his son name and it was Or. And it was Or because he went every month and drove off Or. And when he
Yes, and
reached,
that's
when he went there a couple of weeks ago, the money gone.
And you see that, and that is the whole thing is fine. That I think is part of it in terms of the human rights.
Yes.
With
To
respect to
protect.
older persons.
Thank you.
It is financial exploitation.
Yes.
It is financial exploitation, fraud, and so on, the deprivation of their property, and all of that, theft, expropriation of their land, and all of that sort
you
of a
couldn't do
thing.
anything
Their
for the
property
son.
and goods, and it all falls on the financial exploitation of older persons.
Because his name, you couldn't do anything legally. We couldn't do
Because
anything
his name is
because
on
his
the
name
account.
was there. But it's just that word, so we couldn't do nothing legally. Because so now I'm advising the seniors: make sure that A and D is between there, not or.
You know, sometimes as well, public policy, I can understand it, discriminates against people in terms of policy making and political life, and in terms of an age for work and so on. Sometimes it is seen as discrimination. So at 55, you have to go home. It doesn't matter whether or not you still have something to contribute, if you're in good health and so on. Now, how do we draw on the expertise of older persons, for example? They're older people, they're retired, but they have something that they can offer in terms of their expertise, and how we include them. And should they be excluded from policy making and political life?
No. They
And in the
know-
designing public policy?
They no more.
No citizen should be excluded because public policy affects
Everybody.
everybody.
Right. But the
So they
reality is that sometimes we exclude them.
But we need
because
to
we
make
say,
sure
well,
there are avenues to include the older person.
yes, and sometimes there's still things that they can contribute.
And this is where sorry, the golden
The Golden Age Club, I'll help you.
yes, the Golden
Yes.
Age Club. One of the things that I have incorporated is to have like an older person recruiting system where we have a lot of our seniors are going home retiring and they still have things to contribute. So if take for example Miss Lewis might want an accountant to do some monthly thing. They can tap into the Golden Years Club and say, can you afford someone to give me a couple hours of bookkeeping? We have older persons who can still do that.
Yes.
And so that is one of the avenues I'm looking at, to have persons who will be retiring, going home, sitting down, who are expertise in these areas, and any private sector or even government sector can call and say, can we get someone to do this and pay them, at a reasonable rate to do that service.
Now, of course, as well, one of the things we can't overlook is violence against older persons and women, especially because they're now at a stage where they're vulnerable, and people may take, and not in such a position of strength, and people might take advantage of that. And because because of the situation that they're in, they're not able to report, or they're unable to report, and so on.
But you threaten them.
And you threaten, and so on, and it's really linked to disempowering people. Disempowerment, instead of what we need to do is basically we need to empower our older persons and not disempower them and discriminate against them. So I don't know if in your home care visits and so on, you come across a myriad of issues
Yes, daily.
daily in the home. Some might even be challenged with substance abuse. And because of the isolation in which that they're in, they might turn to the bottle if they can get it, or whatever the case might be. If that social support is not there, especially coming from the family.
And that is why it is very important that our home care officers, are really prepared, because they are the ones now that these seniors are going out there to these seniors on a regular basis. And having that empathetic way about them, the seniors look to them,
They
and
trust
so yes, and they
Trust
gain
them.
that trust, and they will tell them everything. And because they have that listening ear, the senior is going to feel loved. And that is why earlier when we mentioned that we only we only help, but we go a little further than helping because we are there as also support, because these home care officers going into the homes provide a very important service because they listen to these persons who wants to speak to someone, who wants to express, their concerns and so forth, because they encounter so many different personalities of persons. Like I said, we have Alzheimer's, we have, dementias, we have persons who are depressed, we have, elderly persons, so many different personalities. So they have to be prepared. And with these elderly persons bringing in all these stuff because they have nobody to pour it out to and no one to listen to, and that's where they come in.
Yes.
They're very important because at the end of the day, they feel good that they were able to speak to someone, to express themselves, share the things that they knew, and so forth. So it is very important for them, and that's why a lot of them have a sense of, it enhances their longevity. Because they have somebody to talk to.
Something to look forward to daily.
When somebody they might lose their spouse and they're not able, and that's where the golden years are coming through. The socialization, the interaction,
that is why perhaps sometimes when one member of the family, an older person, loses a spouse, shortly after the other one dies as well. Maybe that is because the loneliness and maybe I have nothing else to live for. That person who was the loss, the loss and so on.
Because they were very close.
And they were very, very close. And I surmise that that is perhaps why that happens at times.
Yes.
I might be wrong. I'm not God, but St. Kitts and Nevis has had a long history of human rights. Of course, we can go back to the Buckley's riots in the 1930s. And while the team is speaking about human rights, but in the particular context of how we treat older people, we can look at, in fact, 1935 was when they had the Buckley's riots. And it was about poor wages and how people were treated and so on. So we have that long history. And if we can talk about on the sugar plantation, the sugar workers, people who would have died, who have championed human rights, like Joseph Samuel, John Allen, James Archibald, and some of them who were, they were killed, and then there were others who were injured, like Alfred Rogers and Cyril Tyson, Ellsworth Selkridge and Virginia Grill and Olive Allen and so on. And then we can speak about our first national hero, the Right Excellent and Right Honorable Robert Bradshaw, who was honored posthumously and so on. They all champion human rights. And our society, the Division and Kittitian Society, God forbid that we are not moving away from championing human rights. It doesn't matter whether it is human rights for older persons, for persons of a different nationality, for persons of different gender, race, sexual orientation, whatever it is. But when we start losing that respect for human rights, we've lost it all as a society. And one of the most fundamental right of any human being, inalienable, universal right, is that of the right to life. And what is happening in terms of when we can just don't value other people's lives like that and have all this killing and so going on in the society? It means that we are losing one of the most fundamental, the most fundamental right that human beings have, the right to life. You just don't take people's life like that. Or threaten people's life like that. That is where it all starts. Because if you don't value somebody else's life, You think you're going to talk about human rights for older people and human rights for gays and lesbians and all kind of thing? You don't value life in general?
I agree.
So, we have to go.
I would like to
Let's wrap up with...
I would like to thank, before we go, I would like to thank over the years the persons who you work with, especially the elderly, or older persons, persons who sometimes we don't even ask, but they join us. And one of my top persons, I'm going to name, but this one is top, and the others will fall in line, not in order. But Hosford, SL Hosford is one of our biggest.
All your sponsors.
Oh, yes. If I ask for 5, he gives me 15. So they are one of our biggest. Then we have all the banks in St. Kitts. When we do, they really go. And Scenic Railway and Ear and Support, they really think. And Ashberries, the one. Whether I ask her or not, she said, Mrs. Wigley, I have something here for our seniors. And the various persons, the Rotary Club, who, Sun Island Close for sure, and Best for Less. The Rotary Club, every year since 2005 or 6, they've been giving a luncheon on Heroes Day. When say what Heroes Day started, they go out even before, but they do it on Heroes Day, and they give us a luncheon for the seniors. And this year, Miss Malvi James, we had our sumptuous lunch for our older persons at the church in Molyneux, and it is at Boreas, where I say Molyneux, it's just, and Baptist church there, and it was good. Mount Carmel. We had lunch and they had takeaway. So thank you for all the support. I am not forgetting my bus drivers, the bus drivers who, no matter what, they are there for us. When we say hip, they say hooray. And again, I can't leave them out. My home care officers.
And Mr. Sage.
My home care officers who are out there in the sun, in the rain, and out there with all kind of abuse. I am thanking them. Don't give up in the doing. Sage, the older persons love him.
And
Sage
he
is
likes
our
to work
boy.
with them.
He been with us from the beginning.
He said it'll make him laugh.
Yes. So I am thanking everybody, and I do appreciate whatsoever. If I didn't call names, I'm sorry. What we are doing for our older persons, and let us continue doing that, because one day we might reach there and we will like that same thing.
Would you like to say anything in closing? You've said enough. Okay, fine. And we have one of our ministers. I know she's very humble and so on, but and she is basically the minister responsible for social development, and she has demonstrated, and somebody I admire, the way that she takes care of her parents.
Her own parents.
Her own parents.
Live with her, look after
and for a person who is so busy,
very,
as a minister, and still finds time to look after her parents. And when we talk about the family, and I'm talking about, of course, Senator Honorable Wendy Phipps, and when we talk about the family, we cannot underscore enough how much the family must take care
of their
own. I want to thank all of you for being on today's program. Of course, Mrs. Keynes. It's Miss. Sorry, I'm not married in New York. Miss Keynes and Miss Lewis. PS. I'm getting them all mixed up now. Now, Mrs. Lewis, Janelle Lewis, with the PS in the Ministry of, Social Development and Gender Affairs and Community Development, and of course, Mrs. Wigley, who is the acting director in the Department of Social Development, and Laverne Richard, who is our Senior Social Assistance Officer. Thank all of you for coming on today's program and for engaging in such a very important topic. And let me remind you again of the team celebrating all the human rights champions. All of us really are called to be a champion of our older persons and to protect their human rights. We want to thank all of our callers and our listeners to today's program. We appreciate your company, of course, very much. This has been another Working for You program. Next week, we will be back. Until then, we'll see you. I am Les Roy Williams.
Working for You. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.